Hi, my name is Aiden Lim, and in my presentation, I will be talking about the Protestant Reformation. My topics are the start, the creator, the differences, the 95 Theses, the name, the man of the Renaissance. But first, let's go all the way back to where it all started. How did the Protestants start? The Protestant dated back in 1517, generally when the 95 Theses were published, and had ended in 1555. From there, it allowed Catholicism and Lutheranism to accept each other and coexist in a society. During this period of time, the Church relatively gained numerous amount of power. From how our priests are today, you would think that they were living humble lives and ready to preach about the Lord. But back then, it was nothing like that. Priests were living lives basically like kings, from all the amount of power that they were receiving. They would wear chains, rings, and have their appearance look very boastful. Due to this, the church was starting to abuse their power that they were receiving and took advantage of people by paying for sins, or even paying for baptism and marriage. From this, as you can see, the church has become corrupt, and people slowly started to realize this, thus starting the revolution. The Creator. Who started the Protestant Reformation, and who was he/she? The creator was Martin Luther. Martin was born on November 10th, 1483, Eilsbach, Germany, and had died on February 18, 1546, in the same place. As a child, Martin's education started at a Latin school, where he would then learn the language and how to live a religious life. In his later years, he had received a degree for the liberal arts, and is now known as the Reformer who provoked the start of the Protestant in the 16th century. Through his own words and his actions, he had published the 95 Theses, and had went up against the authority of the Church, and challenged them upon the matter of indulgences. With this, he was able to spread his word, preaching how corrupt the Church has become. Because of this, it has established the division between Catholicism and introduced the construction of new faiths, such as Lutheranism, which Martin Luther created, Calvinism, etc. This had resulted in prompting the Church to exile Martin from their community, and wanting him beheaded. Though he wasn't, due to the Church not being able to capture him. From all of this, he is now known today as one of the most influential figures of Christianity's history. Differences. What are the differences between Lutheranism and Catholicism? Lutheranism is one of the 5 major faiths that had branched off from the Catholic Church, and is one of the results after the Protestant Reformation. In contrast to Catholicism, One of the main issues Protestants have with the Catholic Church is how they rely on priests, popes, etc. to preach about the Bible. As Catholics, we believe that the oral teachings of Jesus that have been provided through centuries help clarify and understand the context within the Bible, whereas Protestants believe that the Bible is sufficient in and of itself, that it is unnecessary to have a certain role as to preach about the Lord. Another difference is how they interpret salvation. As we Catholics, we believe that through salvation we have to be strong in our faith and to do good works. Though, as for Protestants, they think it's only necessary for them to appreciate for what Jesus has done and to keep their faith strong. "95 Theses." What is the purpose of the 95 Theses? Martin's intentions for the 95 Theses were to help preach and make people realize that the church has become corrupt, and that what they were preaching was wrong. The theses were mainly to focus about the church was making people pay for papal indulgences, also known as pay for sins. With the 95 Theses, it had took a huge impact on the church and on other people. It had convinced and realized what the church was doing, thus leading to the division of the church. Like I had said earlier, because of the division, it had introduced the construction of new faiths, and it had made one of Christianity's major part in history. As for the church, it impacted them immensely as well. It had led to the Counter-Reformation, which was the renewal of the Catholicism and the church. With this, the church had grown more spiritual, literate, and more education, and it allowed the church to reflect upon themselves. The name. What is the significance of the name Protestant Reformation? Though there is no real explanation as to why it's called the Protestant Reformation, but with the information that I have gathered and processed through this whole project, I think I am able to interpret and convey as to why it has its name. If you would notice how it says protest and reform in its name, that probably gives a hint to explain why. Protestant Reformation probably got its name maybe to reflect on what had happened in this major event. From how Martin wanted to reform the church and to protest on what they're doing and preaching, thus explaining how and why it got its name, the Protestant Reformation. The man of the Renaissance. Why was Martin Luther considered a man of the Renaissance? After what he has done in that time period, there is no doubt about it that he is considered a man of the Renaissance. As to other men of the Renaissance, they had done something revolutionary that had changed the whole world as we know it. And Martin had done the exact same thing. Considering what had happened in the Renaissance, you would see why he would be called that. Martin had made a division in the whole entire Catholic Church and introduced 5 other major faiths, such as, and had even constructed 1 out of 5 of them. As you can see from this, he had made a huge impact on people, the church, and it takes a huge and immense role in our Christian history. This is my resources that I used. And that's the presentation. Thank you for listening and watching.